everybody. It is so good to have you here with me. Imagine
if you have your vision as the car with the right team.
Imagine how quick that vision will come into the picture. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence. Just give us a little background about Theolyn and what you're up to these days.
So, a little bit about myself. I'm the eldest daughter of my mom and my dad, Theolyn Francis. And I have a younger brother. I've got a son as well. We live in El Dorado Park, so not all bad things come from El Dorado Park, I believe. I am a teacher of a primary school. I teach grade 5 Afrikaans and geography and arts. And yeah, so that's what I'm up to these days. And
yeah, so tell us, what did you study eventually, and how many degrees do you have behind your name?
Or certificates and stuff behind your name.
So I studied psychology, and then I studied education as well. So the aim there is to combine the two and actually become an educational psychologist and help kids, because I see the need in our society. A lot of our kids don't know how to read. A lot of our kids also can't focus well at school because of their social backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really necessary for them to have a stable mindset, to have coping skills, because a lot of them face challenges at home and it affects their education. So if we can really tap into that and help our kids in that area, I think our kids will be able to flourish.
I do agree. I always wanted to ask you this question, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here this morning, asking you, what's the feeling of being a daughter of a judge? And then you see your dad sometimes on TV, and your dad is doing tough cases, and you guys worried about him, because you know what? It's not the easiest job to have. What's the feeling? I'm not talking about your dad is just a teacher. He's a judge. Eh?
I get asked that quite often, and for me at home, I firstly just see him as my dad. Mm-hmm. I think anyone that has a dad would know what it's like to have a dad, but to have a dad as influential as that, it's quite difficult, because you have to society puts this expectation on you. Like for me, I'm always expected to be intelligent because your dad is a judge, so you must be, you have to have achieved so much and you have to be quite, I don't know. But there's always just this expectation, but it's also challenging because he has to live up to a certain standard in society that society has placed on him. He has to, live the law, has to have a high moral standing. So I think sometimes we as his children also need to live up to that, because my father will always say, "Moet my nie in die skande steek," because we don't want to see tomorrow in the headlines, the judge's child caught on this, because then they think that, he's supposed to uphold the law, and then here you as his child breaking the law.
Isn't it interesting? If you go through this book, you exactly did that.
Yes.
You test him in so many areas, and that's where we want to get to.
Yes.
For the benefit of our viewers, was it easy to write and publish this book? Was it hard for you to sit down and to pen it to paper?
I think so. Just how I actually started writing this book was when Xavier and Leandra actually came to me and they wanted to do a play of my testimony. So I had to write down some ideas to give to them, to give them a background of my story. And as I was writing it, I thought, you know what, let me expand a little, and then on the story, and then I started writing more. But then it was really hard because it's your life, and it's like, do I really want people to see this side of me? Do I really want to be vulnerable? Like, do I really want people to see the pain that I went through? But so it was difficult. There was times where I would write and it would flow, and then there was times where I would stop writing because then the memories, would become so intense, and then I would just stop for a while, and then I would continue again. So it was a bit of an up and down journey writing the book,
Yeah. If you know of anyone out there that you want to phone now and ask them to come online, this is really, really a good opportune time, and for you just to help somebody through so many things. I don't want to let it out too early, but in order for you to call somebody and say, listen to this, Theolyn went through so many suicidal attempts, more than 12, and then at one point 76 tablets. She ended up in hospital so many times. She was drug addicted, and I can go down the line. Remember now, we were talking about the daughter of a judge that said, you don't do trouble here out there, and she did exactly all that. But you know what's the blessing? The turnaround. So let's start with you with what you call your search for Mr. Right. So the question is there such a thing as a Mr. Right? So just share a little about that.
I think with hindsight, I don't know. I don't think there's a Mr. Right. I think there's just there's a person that God has for you, and I believe that person should be your purpose partner. That where you guys have the same purpose in mind, where God has the same purpose in mind for you. I think that is who God has called you to eventually be with at the, when you get married and so forth, whether you're male or female. God has somebody in mind for you that is connected to the purpose and the plans that He has for you. So sometimes we have this Mr. Right in mind, but sometimes we also need to be Mrs. Right, So yeah, if you're looking for Mr. Right, make sure that you're Mrs. Right as well.
Tell us about your childhood and your family situation and your accomplishments at school.
Okay, so as I mentioned, so it's just myself and my brother's married, so now I have a sister as well, and my parents and my son. So, but previously, obviously my son wasn't born, so it was just my brother and myself and my parents. I think we were just like your typical ideal family, where we didn't have any, I can't remember growing up where we had any challenges. My father was the typical provider. He would work. My mother was a stay-at-home mother, by choice to look after us. He would take us to school. She would fetch us. If we had extramural activities, like where we had swimming, she would be the one that would take us and so forth. So that was our setting. And then my achievements at school, so I really loved swimming. My dream was always to be an Olympic swimmer. I think if I held on to that dream, I would be on my way to Tokyo right now. But that was my dream. That was one of my strong points, and what I'm actually still known for from my teachers and even my peers at school. That was like the number one thing, that and maths. Yeah,
So
those are
you-
my two strong points.
Yeah. So, without describing what physically happened on that night of the 11th of December 2009 in your book, tell us how your life changed.
It's actually 2007.
Is it in 7?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happened was that I was raped by my cousin. We were actually attending the funeral of my aunt, my dad's late sister, and that evening we slept in the back room of my granny's yard, and so some of my cousins went out to go and party and clubbing, and the rest of us, we sat in the back room where we were going to sleep, and we were talking, just how young girls would talk about, like fashion, we just had our general discussions, and then we got tired, and there was 2 single beds, and we went to sleep, and that evening my cousin came in, and yeah, that was the evening that I got raped, and without going into too much detail, that is basically what happened.
So, in your book, you say you were never the same again. Share with us some of the ways in which your life changed.
I think, but I know that my trust in my family, and more especially my cousin, that really destroyed me, because I always saw him as someone that, because he wasn't much older than me, but I always saw him as someone that I could trust, and someone that would always look out for me and be there for me, and that really broke me, to think that someone that I saw as my protector, someone that I saw as, that I grew up with, to do something like that. I don't know why am I getting emotional.
It's okay, baby. It's okay. This is what it's all about. There's people out there, and they're going through the same stuff, exactly the same things that you are going through. And I guess the healing process is not always a short journey, and sometimes it takes time to get through it. But your life has changed drastically since then. And that evening changed you to a person that you never wanted to be. And isn't that so?
Yes.
Because you had ambitions and dreams. You wanted to move on in life. You wanted to live life like a normal little girl. And you want to complete high school, and you want to walk down the aisle, and there's so many other things. But it's okay. It's okay. But thank you for sharing your story. We just want to share it with the world. And thank you for coming. We really appreciate that. Yeah. So, are you ready to continue?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about how your life has changed since that day.
I think my life has changed since then, because I've always been a person that loved my family.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up so close-knit that we would always spend Christmas together. When it was birthdays, we would always be there. Despite being a big family, we were very close. And then when that happened, everything I knew about family completely changed. Mm-hmm. And I started seeing myself differently as well, to the point where I didn't even want to swim anymore, because obviously, you're wearing a swimming costume. Mm-hmm. I felt like I was being too revealing. Mm-hmm. And I saw myself in a different light. Mm-hmm. I didn't see myself as a beautiful young girl that my mother and my father always told me I was. Mm-hmm. I saw myself as this ugly girl. Mm-hmm. I saw myself as this mistake. You always see those things happen to everyone else. You see it in the news, you read it in the newspaper, and you never think that it will happen to you until it actually does. And then the reality strikes that, you know what, I'm damaged. I'm who's going to love me? Because I mean, if God doesn't even love me, so who else is going to love me? So that my mind completely changed. My thinking completely changed when that happened.
And out there, there's who knows what's happening specifically during lockdown.
Yes.
Who knows what's happening there with cousins and even parents and little kids in these houses during lockdown, and
True.
the neighbors will not know.
True. I've
Eh,
had many cases even with learners where they'll tell you that my stepdad is doing this to me, and then people don't believe, and it's like, why are you not believing? It's a child. Why would a child not lie? And the reality is that it's happening.
My word. Well, this is a must read. I tell you, the book has so many interesting stories, and you can help so many people. And if you know of somebody that's going through abuse at this point in time, just purchase this book and just give it to that person, or somebody that's struggling with drugs, or somebody that's struggled just to sort their personal life out again. I would love you, please, if you don't mind, just to get this book. Just support Theolyn here. And thank you for your courage to write this book, man. I don't know. I must just admit, I don't think I'll have the if I can use just a simple word, guts and the energy and strength to reveal myself to the rest of the world. So, Theolyn, from your experience, what are the issues sexual assault victims have to deal with once they break the silence? Because it's like this girl in school. The mother don't believe her, family don't believe her. And specifically, when you look at the stepfather, and in your case, it was a cousin. How do people treat you after breaking the silence?
You get people that will support you, and then you get people that will say you're lying, and then you get other people that actually say you deserve it.
Shoot.
You know, so you go through a lot. I mean, some people actually have good coping skills, where they have the resources to go for counseling. They have the resources to go to their church and actually receive counseling and help. And unfortunately, there's others that do not have that kind of resource, and then they're not able to deal with it. So, like with me, my coping method, or how I dealt with it at the time when before I broke the silence, was that I was in denial. So I kept telling myself that it didn't happen. And eventually when I spoke and I said, you know what, this did happen, I was just all over the place. You know, I was angry. Some people go through anger. Some people just become completely withdrawn. Others, you know, just become rebellious. There's no blanket to describe how everybody feels. You know, each one is different, but it's difficult. Yeah.
Well, not the easiest interview here this morning with Theolyn, because I tell you, the journey that she went on was not the easiest journey in her life, but you know, the courage to put this on paper, and the courage of her to write this book, and to give us some insight of what's really happening when you go through these circumstances in life at a young age, being raped by a cousin. And the journey is not finished. I'm telling you that's watching by live stream, and those that's watching by YouTube, thank you so much for tuning in. I tell you, such an emotional story, and I know at some point, and because I know Theolyn, and I just thank God for the way she turned her life around. So Theolyn, in your experience, share with us what sexual assault victims go through during a court case, because you had the courage to go to court with this whole situation. So share a little around that.
Okay, so before you actually get to go to this, you have to start off at the police station. And for me, I found that experience so cold, because I remember we had to drive all the way to Mpumalanga, where the incident happened. And when we went to the police station, I was put in this cold room. And then they were asking me questions. I had to relive that entire experience. I had to share with them in detail, what had happened. And then after, giving my statement, they put me in another room and I was sitting alone there and I felt like, why am I being treated? I felt almost as if I was in a cell. Why am I being treated as if I did something wrong? And then from then onwards, I had to go to the hospital to get examined. And then this being more than a year later, I felt violated again. And then from then onwards, I then had to go. I went to a teddy bear clinic where the social worker there was like trying to guide me and prepare me for court. But when I went when I actually had my court case, I had a prosecutor that didn't even know my name. This prosecutor was there to defend me, but not once did I actually sit with this prosecutor and say this was my story. It was like I felt that I was being failed. I went up there and I sat and I shared, and they were asking me silly questions like, was there a blanket between you? And I'm like, for me, I thought that was so irrelevant. Like, why, first of all, why don't I have someone that's defending me, that even knows who I am, that has spoken to me? I just have someone that has been called to take my case. And for me, and then the case was also heard in Afrikaans, because my cousin said that his first language is in Afrikaans. And, I just felt like, okay, but why are you just benefiting him? Why is the court, put in such a way that it's to benefit him, it's to please him, it's to make him comfortable, and yet it's to make me feel uncomfortable? And, for me personally, that the experience was just so cold. I felt like just another number. I felt like just another statistic. And before actually going to court, I felt a little bit hopeful, knowing that, okay, my father's a judge, so I'm going to have the best, representative that's going to represent me. But yet I had a prosecutor that didn't even know my name. I don't even know his name. If I have to see him in the street, I probably wouldn't know him. I'll walk right by him. Yet this was a man that was supposed to fight for me in court. Yet we don't know each other.
So how did he build his case?
I don't even know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. He basically just had my statement, what I said to the police, and he was asking questions based on what I said on my statement.
I'm sure you're following a lot of cases around abuse and violations if it comes to women. Do you think this is still happening today?
I actually went to a talk one day, and I spoke to a representative of the NPO, the National Prosecutors Authority, NPA, the National Prosecutors Authority, and I shared my case with him, and there was a lot of people there. There was that play a key role in gender-based violence. There was judges there, there was prosecutors there was the police there. There was women in non-profit organizations, and I said to them, this is what is happening, this is our reality. And they were dumbfounded by it. And I assume that those are certain people that, take pride in their work. But there was a lot of people that was also saying that this is the truth, this is what is happening. And what I also learned at that conference was that, this thing where they say that if you get raped or you get assaulted in one specific area, you have to go to that area to report it. It's not true, because if you look at the name of SAPS, it's the South African Police Service. It's not the Eldorado Park Police Service or the Mpumalanga. Why should we always go to that particular police station? If you are in need of help and you need to report a case, you need to go to that particular police station and go and report your case. And they need to help you regardless of where you are, regardless of where where the incident happened. And I feel that is a lot of information that our people do not know. It's private to only certain people. Those are things that people need to know. Those of things that victims need to be aware of. Make sure that your prosecutor knows who you are. Make sure you took the time to actually state your case so that they can represent you. Because remember, you're not just a number. You're actually a life, and your life matters.
And it feels most of the time that as if you were in fault.
Yes.
And that was the feeling in the court,
Yes.
right? So my question, I know the book, but did you win the case just for the viewers' sake?
No, I didn't.
And how did that let you feel?
I lost faith in the justice system, because the magistrate, because we were in the magistrate court, the magistrate at the time said that he could see that that I was raped. I just didn't have enough evidence that it was my cousin. So it was a thing of he said, she said, so there wasn't witnesses that can support my case. But how many people actually rape you in front of a witness?
Of course. Who's going to do that? Who's going to put a video on, a phone on
To show that.
to record your deeds?
Yes.
In any case, that's why they're rapists, isn't that so? So how did this experience influence your education and the choices of studies you wanted to pursue? Because I can imagine that influenced you in one way or the other.
Yes. My parents took me to see a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists, and many of them were not able to help me. So it was like always, I'm referring you to this one, and that one refers me to that one. So nobody could actually help me. And I then decided that I was going to study psychology, and then to help my own brain kind of figure things out for myself. I thought that, okay, if I study psychology and I learn from the professors and whoever else, I'm going to take what I learn and kind of just to fix myself.
And how did that help you, studying psychology?
I think the biggest thing that I learned when I did a research activity, that this was specifically for sociology also, where I studied how drugs actually affect certain people's thinking and why they are violent. So in one of my studies, I specifically studied the effects of alcohol and ecstasy, because that is what I knew my cousin was on, and those are the drugs that he abused. So I learned that using that, it made him very aggressive, and also it makes them more, it arouses their sexual desires and so forth. So studying that and understanding it, I understood why he did what he did that night also, but not justifying what he did. I just have an understanding of why he did it, and also understanding that he was not in his own, in his right frame of mind, but also understanding that rapists, they sometimes it's also a control issue. So there's a lot of factors that play a role in their mind. So studying all of this helped me gain an understanding of why he did it, but I'm not justifying what he did. But that also gave me a lot of healing. That gave me a better understanding, because now my fight is not just for women to be healed, but it's also for men to get healed. Because if you look at it, broken people, Joyce Meyer says, hurt people. Mm-hmm. And to fight this, we need to fight the root cause of it. We need to help the men, because a lot of times we say that, or men believe that men shouldn't cry. Mm-hmm. They need to always be strong. They need to always be in control. And then that need for control all the time, it sparks certain things. If a man also wants to be with a woman and he wants to show that he's in control, he's going to forcefully rape her. Whereas if we don't, we teach them also not to think like that it's okay to be weak, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be vulnerable. I think when we heal our men, then we don't have to have so much institutes where we're trying to heal women. We're going to be healing women all the time, but what about the men? So that a study has helped me to realize that there's a problem on both ends, and that as much as I'm against the rape, I'm also compassionate, knowing that these men need help. And I know I'm probably going to be crucified by women that have also gone through rape, feeling that we need to stand up for women. Yes, we need to stand up for women, but we need to help our men as well. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good. We busy with the most beautiful Theolyn Francis on a book written with love, a must-have. Please get this book, and if you know of anybody that went through tough times, if it comes to any form of abuse, if it's sexual abuse or drug abuse, and how to get out of it. That's important, because this book will surely help you to get out of it, because it's written with love. That's the title of it. So suicide and your plan to escape this horrible nightmare. So tell us about your suicide attempts. How did you see yourself? How did others see you?
Oh, I had so many suicide attempts. I don't even know which one to talk on.
Yeah, you can go to any one of those, because under correction 12, right?
No, that was just with tablets trying to like an overdose.
You're not telling me it was more.
There was more.
Oh my
I think
word!
there's one there's one also that I specifically write in my book about. So it was on the 24th of October, where I actually drove. My parents bought me my first car, which was a Golf. And that was a Sunday evening, and I was at a party. But while at this party, the devil kept telling me, like, you need to kill yourself, you need to kill yourself. And I was sitting there, and everybody's like dancing and enjoying themselves, but I'm in my mind planning how I'm going to actually kill myself. And the guys I was with, I dropped them all and at their homes, and I went down to Mahoney Single. And I went right at the bottom. So if you're like in Eldorado Park, you know that the Mahoney Single Street goes all the way from Extension 3 right up to Extension 4. And I drove all the way down, and I'm thinking, okay, so I'm going to drive this car really fast, and I'm going to drive straight into a robot. And that is actually what I did, because the enemy kept telling me, the devil kept telling me that I'm a mistake. My family will be so much better without me. That my life, I have no purpose. I'm just a mistake, and that I need to die. Everybody will be, happy without me. And I actually believed those thoughts. And as I drove, I drove up really fast, and I hit the robot, and I just saw white, and then I was out. And then I woke up in the hospital, not in the hospital, I woke up in the ambulance. And then I was actually angry with myself because I was in pain, but I was angry with myself because I wasn't dead. And then that for me was like, okay, then immediately I started thinking, okay, what is the next thing I'm going to do to try and kill myself? But it's just that, when you go through those things, it's just like everything becomes so dark. It's like, I see it now as like a form of pride, because you're just thinking about yourself. You're just thinking about the mistake that you are. You're not thinking of how your actions could actually affect someone else. You're just thinking about you, and how negative and how bad you are. So it's like there's just like this dark, heavy cloud that comes upon you when you have those, those urges to want to kill yourself. So yeah,
that was one of the many.
Yes.
So share a little more about other attempts on your own life.
So I had a lot of attempts at school as well. I remember there was once also. So in our school we had a swimming pool at our schools, and there was this high wall also that was the barrier between our school classrooms and the pool. And I remember one day I actually climbed on that wall, and I threw myself backwards and then I hit my head on the ground, and then still nothing happened. And then there another attempt also at school where I sat on the one side, it's like about 1 meter high, and on the other side it's a 3 meter drop. And I did the same also, where I threw myself backwards, and then those attempts never work. I just get hurt, and then they'll take me to hospital, and then that is, that would be the end of it. And then I try again, and like all the times where the experiences that I had where I took overdoses, I would take these overdoses and then I would start vomiting and then I'd go to hospital, and then what they do in hospital, they put like this big pipe down your throat and you have to swallow the pipe down all the way to your stomach, and it's really painful and really uncomfortable, and then they start pumping your stomach to get all these medication out of you, and then after that they just like yank the thing out of your throat, which is like so. But then I kept doing it all the time. It was like this psychotic pattern that I always had because I was so determined. People often called me a coward, yet I would tell them I'm not a coward because I'm more determined than what you are. I was like determined to die. And so it's like, it's really, I don't know, suicide is really like from the pit of hell, because it's like the enemy constantly tells you that you are not good enough, you're not good enough. He breaks you into this, he breaks you to a point where you actually feel like you're nothing, like you worthless, like you like even a speck of dust is worth more than you, like you feel like you are absolutely nothing. And that is often how I felt when I went through this. And so many times people would say like, I had like also a lot of times where people would like, I think they were really angry with me because I didn't realize the pain, or I didn't want to realize the pain that I caused them, that they would say, you foolish, or when you want to commit suicide, let me help you, I think they said it out of frustration, out of not knowing what else to say, but not realizing that their words actually were contributing to the fact that I really need to die, because now you are affirming what the enemy is telling me in my mind, because he's telling me that I'm not good enough, that I must die, and now you're coming and telling me I'm going to help you. That's affirming that I'm not worth it, that you're actually saying to me that you want me to die. And that's why I have this challenge with people that often say things like that, because you don't really know what the person is going through, and yet you're using your words for harm and not for the good. So it's yeah.
So what would be the right thing to share to somebody that tried to kill themselves, they really, really desperately want to die, and they wanted to commit suicide? What's the do's and don'ts?
I think I'll speak for myself, because I think everybody is different. But for me, I would have appreciated more people to kind of just be there, in a sense where, like, show me that you want to listen. Don't listen to want to respond or listen to want to give me advice, because sometimes your advice is not always productive to what I'm going through. Like there was a lot of times where I just wished people were just there for me to be able to see that you are there, where I can trust you enough to speak to you and say, you know what, I'm going through this. But also, when I speak to you, I don't want to know tomorrow what I share to you in confidence is being discussed around the lunch table, or is being discussed with your neighbor, because you think you can trust that person. Everybody thinks they can trust someone, and then they share your business. So I think that is also, be somebody that people can trust, but what somebody says to you, take it with you to the grave, regardless of whether it's your wife or whether it's your best friend or someone. Just be someone that is trustworthy and be there. I think actions speak louder than words. Be physically there for someone that they can actually see, this is someone that I can trust, and then avail yourself. When somebody says, you know what, I need to speak to you now, drop everything and listen to that person. Avail yourself to actually listen, because I think that's what we need now, especially in this fast-paced society where people are so constantly busy sharing and speaking their mind, and nobody's really listening. Nobody's really just stepping back and saying, you know what, talk. But listen also attentively. Don't listen just to respond, but listen because you genuinely care. I think that would help a lot.
Theolyn, I'm just thinking, if you kind of create a family scenario,
okay,
where you have mom, dad, kids in the house, and specifically about what's happening now in South Africa, the looting, the lockdown, the levels that we're on, the frustration, the one income, and everybody's in their own zone. And I think this is a good time for the devil just to have a party, because nobody's really listening. Because mom just tried to put food on the table, and dad is struggling to work from home, and there's a salary cut, and it's such a mess. The schools are closed and lockdown, and so many things are happening now. And this is the time really for us as parents, maybe just to switch the television off. This is maybe the time just to say, you know what, let's just talk a little.
Yes.
And try to listen, as you say. And just on that betrayal story, so having people betray your trust. So how did this change the way you, Theolyn, relate to people?
I think this is something that I'm still struggling with. Where I know, like, because I don't know, this is my fault though, that I need to work on. Where I've had friends in the past where I would share with them, and I remember I actually had a friend where, this friend came with also to the court case with me to see everything. I had like friends in the street, and that I would share with, and afterwards I would hear them talk about me and call me names and things like that, and I would then shut people out, because betrayal comes from people that you care about, from people that you trusted. And I'd shut them out completely. And even like with my cousin, I felt betrayed, because it was somebody that I looked up to, somebody that I thought would protect me. As girl cousins, you always look at your male cousins and say, what, that's my cousin. When I'm wherever, I can always call them. They'll be there to help or protect. And so that has really affected me even up to today, where I struggle to really trust people, because I don't know, maybe I trust too easily, but I always find myself betrayed at the end. So I tend to keep people at a distance, which is wrong, but for me, sometimes it actually works, but it's something that's wrong.
You use it just to protect yourself
Yes,
where you are now. But you're working on it, right?
I'm working on
And
it, yes.
there are times in our lives that we just to let go. And work with the idea that people will betray.
Yes.
And it's kind of a package of life. Not everybody will be for you.
True.
There will be those that will like you and those that will hate you.
Yeah.
And life is just wired like that. And I must just tell you, it's a journey for all of us.
Yes.
All of us we're really going through this. Family members are going through this. People that really shared very intimate information. It's on Facebook today about what they've shared privately. And that scarred them so severely that they don't know how to turn and face another day. Theolyn, I want you to take me on a journey now. Your journey of your turning around. You mentioned that you're looking in your mom's eyes and that feeling about what am I doing to her? The feeling about most probably being the last time in hospital and to see how they struggle with you, and you look at your mom. Take us on that journey. And I'm not going to interrupt you. I want you to take me through that journey towards what happened after that, and what happened when you stop at the corner of the church. Give us this whole journey, but the turning point. Take us to the turning point.
So with that was when I realized the hurt and the pain that I was causing my family was when I was rushed to hospital, because I had internal bleeding. So this was my near-death experience, where the doctors actually told my parents, they need to prepare for the worst, because I'm not going to make it. And they rushed me into the theater to go for my operation to stop the bleeding. And I remember I saw my granny, and I saw my aunt, and then I saw my mother just before I was pushed into the theater. And this tired look on my mother's face made me realize that, what, I'm not the only one that is hurting. My actions are now hurting them, regardless of the fact that they are hurting because of what happened to me. They're also hurting because of the pain I'm putting them through. And so after the operation and everything, I came out, and then I was in my recovery process, and I said that I'm no more going to kill myself through, taking overdoses. But then my mind kind of switched, and then I then went from not taking overdoses, but now I wanted to kill myself through my lifestyle choices. So I started living recklessly, like drinking and partying and smoking, like coming into the house drunk and high. And my parents would see it and I would deny it. And like I was like, really? They would say that I was putting them in the scandal, which is something they didn't want, but I was doing it. And I think that's where people also started labeling me and calling me certain names and saying, why would she do this, given that she's the judge's child? She's supposed to be living upright. You know, I often relate to pastors' kids where they put this standard of how they should be living. And I then started seeing that how people were looking at me, you know, it was also affecting them. They were also being labeled as not being good parents. I remember there was a lady also that stormed into our home that accused them for not being good parents, and I could actually see how troubled they were because of that. So, you know, that's when I started seeing how my actions started really affecting my parents. But I remember also I was sitting in varsity. So now all these things were playing in my mind of my parents, and I needed to like started living right. But before that also, I remember my mother would always bring us to church. And even though I wasn't interested, she just brought me. And I remember there was a sermon that you preached on the vine and the branches. And where if we were connected to the vine, you know, when we connected to Jesus, we will be bearing good fruit. And when we're not connected to him, we're not going to bear good fruit. And that for me registered in my mind that, you know what, I'm not bearing good fruit because I'm not being good. I'm not being patient. I'm hurting my family. I'm not showing the love that I deserve or that I desire. I'm not showing that to them. So that sermon was also playing in my mind. And I remember sitting at varsity, and I was actually smoking in my car, and I was bunking one of my lectures. But I sat and I looked at my mirror, and I looked at myself, and I'm like, I don't know who you are anymore. And it was at that point also where I had this in my mind, like, who are you? I don't know you anymore. You're not that young girl that wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. You're not that young girl that loved family. You're not that young girl that was always making silly jokes and like letting people laugh and do all that. You're not that girl anymore. And I remember driving home and having all those things playing in my mind. And then it was a Tuesday, I won't forget, it was the 19th of August 2014, where again I was supposed to go to varsity, but I ended up standing you know, in the street just before you turn to come to Crystal Church. I stood there's like this tree, and I stood under the tree before I took the corner, and I stopped the car and I said, you know, Jesus, I'm gonna give you a try. As much as I don't believe that you actually exist, I'm gonna give you a try because I've tried everything else. And I sat there and I said, if this is what you want for me, I'm gonna do it, but you're gonna be with me because I'm not gonna make a fool of myself there in front of all those people. And I drove and I came to the receptionist and I said, look, I just want to give my heart to Jesus. And I felt a bit awkward at the time because it's like, who does that? Who just drives up to a church and say, I want to give my heart to Jesus? But I did it. Even though I didn't believe in Jesus, I think now with hindsight, I was obedient and I came. And I remember it was Pastor Neil that came down and he prayed and I gave my heart to God. And I must say, my life didn't change instantly, but I felt relief. I felt that I wasn't alone anymore. Because for the longest time, I felt like I was alone, you know, because depression makes you feel like you're alone. It makes you feel that nobody understands, nobody wants to understand, nobody cares. And it's like I said, this devil just makes you just feel like, he makes you focused on you and the negative of you, that there's no hope. But that day, I felt like there's hope. I always used to think that I would never make live beyond the age of 30. But from that time on, I could see that, okay, maybe there is a future for me, maybe there is hope. And I didn't know what God had in store for me. I didn't know what He wanted to do with my life. All I knew was that I'm not alone anymore.
I like your story, really, and I didn't want to interrupt you. What happened after you made that commitment? I recall you mentioned that you didn't want to share it with anybody because you wanted to privately try it.
Yes.
Give us the journey from there onwards.
So the one person, I know many people know her as Mami Fasaki, but I call her Oma Net. She's like been my granny. I went to her because she was the one person, and even Opa Ron, they were the two people that always came to me, even when I wasn't saved, even when I was an atheist, and I openly told them that I was an atheist. But they were the two people that would always come and visit and just check up and tell me about Jesus. So for her, she was the one person that I said, okay, I'm going to tell her, but I'm not going to tell anyone else. But knowing her, she went to go tell my mother. So in one end, I was a bit annoyed, but on the other side, I was actually relieved to know that now my family knows, because they actually held me accountable. Because I think if I stuck to not wanting to tell anybody, I think I wouldn't have grown as much as I did, because it's important to have people that hold you accountable also, because they kind of help you to stay on the right path. So, I told her, and then she told my mother, and then my mother was happy, and then I came with my brother to youth, because for the longest time, him and his now wife were nagging me to come to church and nagging me to come to youth. And I always said, no, man, I don't want to. And then eventually I came with them, and then I felt at home. I felt like I belonged, because at first I thought, you know what, I don't think I'm going to connect with these people really well, because I feel like they all love the straight and narrow life, and now I come and I'm like all untidy and stuff like that. So, but then to my surprise, it wasn't like that. I felt at home. I felt like they actually see me, they actually care, and that is part of my journey.
What a journey! So how many years now since that last day that you decided that you will give your life to Jesus, and you want to stop this, and you want to turn your life around? From that day that you pulled into the car park at church, how many years later?
In a few weeks, it'll be 7 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And I haven't looked back since.
Wow. In the meantime, you educate yourself with another degree, and you're a teacher now. You do what you love, and you do psychology. And it seems like, in general, that at some stage, we need to have a follow-up.
Yes.
You've got such a wonderful story to share. I must just admit, you've got such a beautiful story to share. I want you out there, please support Theolyn. Where can we find this book?
So I self-published the book, so you can just send me an email or an inbox. I think the best way to reach me is via Facebook. And my Facebook is Theolyn Anastasia Francis. So you can just send me an inbox.
Yeah. Otherwise, you can just call us on 011 494 1363. And then I'm sure that our producer will bring the number up somewhere on there, so that you can just see there when you watch it, and Theolyn's number, or maybe her full names and so on, or maybe just a cover picture of the book, and they can kind of track you in one way or the other. Theolyn, if you have to speak to somebody out there that's struggling with suicide, somebody that's struggling with drugs, somebody that's struggling just to find themselves, somebody that's struggling out there that feel really betrayed, somebody that's there that wants to not live, wants to give up on life and their dreams and their vision and their objectives and their goals. If you have to look into that camera, and what will you say to that person?
Okay. The first thing I would want to say to you is that you have a purpose, and God loves you. Christ died on the cross for you. He had you in mind when he hung on that cross. So never think that you are a mistake. Never think that you don't have a purpose. Never think that you are not loved. You are loved unconditionally. And there is always hope. And I describe hope, or I spell hope as JESUS. That hope is Jesus. And regardless of what anybody says, or regardless of what anybody does to you, know that you are loved and there is hope. And always remain on your knees, praying and trusting that God will come through for you. I know it's difficult to pray. I know it's difficult to trust, but do it and you won't regret it.
Man, I'm telling you, I was in tears with you. I just have to compose myself, but what a story. Theolyn, I just want to thank you for taking courage out to put this pen to paper. I just want to encourage you that don't grow weary. Stay focused. It's 7 years down the line. I think there's another book in you. You should get that book out. And if I look into your eyes, it seems like there is a book in you. You're busy with one now.
Yes.
What is it?
It's titled Princess in Preparation.
Wow. So when do you think of bringing that book out, Princess in Preparation?
I'm busy with the last 5 chapters.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully soon.
Soon. Everybody out there, thank you so much for tuning in today. This is your host, Carl Hendricks. I want you please to subscribe every single time. When you see us, hit that bell and you will know exactly when we're online. From me to you, I love you. God loves you best. You must have a super wonderful day. Till next time, you take care.
Good morning, everybody. It is so good to have you here with me. Imagine if you have your vision as the car with the right team. Imagine how quick that vision will come into the footsteps. Something that was taking 5 years takes 3 months. This morning is all about the leadership and influence.